Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
Feels so funky. Feels so funky.
Hello everybody and welcome to Cinematic for the People. It's episode 5. It's the 30th of May 2018. I'm one of your hosts, Alan Kerr, joined as always by Andrew Craddock.
That's me.
My co-host. Later on today, we're going to be talking about Solo, a Star Wars story, the latest in the kind of Disney Star Wars spin-off movies. We'll take a look at the news. We'll listen to what Andy has been watching over the past week, old and new. But first, Andy, how's it going? What have you been up to? How's life?
Good man. Just it's pretty hot here right now.
No, man, it's I feel like such a Scottish person, but like it's too hot.
It is too hot. So yeah, apart from the excruciating heat, I've just been catching some movies. Been keeping busy with work, keeping out of trouble, and yeah, that's about it. Just trying to hide in air-conditioned cinema screens for most of the week.
Yes.
If I can. What about you? What have you been up to?
Yeah, much the same. Trying not to die of heat stroke.
Yeah.
And spend time in the cinema is a good way to do that.
I know this is an audio-only podcast, but you should check out the tan I have on my leg. Have a look.
Yeah, that's like a total whatever the leg equivalent of a t-shirt suntan is.
Yeah. So I've been out walking a lot in this sun, and
God, that is a severe tan. I feel like I kind of want to take a picture of it and put it on the Twitter.
Okay, well maybe we could do that later.
That could be the episode art.
I'm starting to feel a little bit weird about bringing it up now.
It kind of looks like you've lost your foot and had to have someone else's like surgically attached to the bottom of your leg.
A very pale person's
Yeah.
foot has been attached to my leg. Yeah. So so it's been sunny. It's not been the most conducive film watching weather because it is just so hot. So it's nice to get out and actually appreciate it a little bit as well.
So to spend as much time in the cinema as possible, I ended up seeing Solo twice.
Oh wow!
Not because I thought it was like incredible or anything, but just I saw it. Then my girlfriend wanted to see it, so I saw it twice. Just the once for you.
I've just seen it once. I went to see it on opening night with my dad. He was super excited to see it.
Your dad, a big Star Wars guy.
He is, but he went to see Empire Strikes Back when it came out as a kid. Well, he wouldn't have been a kid; he'd have been a teenager.
The perfect age, you might say.
Yeah, so he wasn't a kid per se, but he always tells me he didn't go and see the first Star Wars film because he went to see something else instead, and he only really got into Star Wars when Empire came out.
That might be more interesting if you knew what the something else was.
Yeah, it was like something terrible. Like whatever else came out in 1977, probably some dour drama. Anyway, so now we went to see Solo together. He has been like really looking forward to it because he loved the trailers, which I was less than enthused about the trailers. I thought they were okay, but he was really excited about it, and it was fun to catch it with him and see his reactions as well.
So for those not in the know, why don't you give us a wee synopsis, courtesy of Letterboxd, about what the film is about? Yeah,
so Letterboxd have got a nice concise synopsis here. Letterboxd, by the way, take their information from the movie database, not the Internet Movie Database, but TMDB, the movie database.
Where are they located, if not on the internet?
Well, they are on the internet, but they don't charge a fortune for their API, which the IMDb do.
You seem like you've got an axe to grind here.
No, just a little bit of trivia for you there. So the Letterboxd synopsis via TMDB for Solo, a Star Wars story says, through a series of daring escapades deep within a dark and dangerous criminal underworld, Han Solo meets his mighty future co-pilot Chewbacca and encounters the notorious gambler Lando Calrissian.
I've been running scams on the street since I was 10. I was kicked out of the flight academy for having a mind of my own. I'm gonna be a pilot. Best in the galaxy.
Hey, kid. I'm putting together a crew. You in?
That's yes.
So overall, what did you think of the movie?
I went into this movie expecting not a great deal. I think we ended last week's podcast with 2 words: fingers crossed. You couldn't have put it better.
Yeah.
So I went in a little bit trepidatious. I'm a big Star Wars fan in general, and I was really pleasantly surprised by it. I thought it was a fun action movie, adventure movie, and just, I really liked that it didn't take itself too seriously, and had a really good time with it, particularly chatting about it with my dad afterwards, who was raving about it as well. What about you, man?
Yeah, much the same. Went in not expecting much, and very pleasantly surprised. Like you said, I think this is more so than any of the other Star Wars movies, and I think also, like, if you look at the Marvel movies as a kind of like a comparison to what Disney are trying to do, this like can just be viewed as like a fun standalone space adventure movie. Yeah,
with 1 or 2 caveats because of how they've handled that. I think they could have cut a couple of things to make it even more of a standalone movie.
But yeah, none of that is kind of, the plot doesn't hinge on any of that stuff.
No.
But yeah, before we kind of get into the big discussion of it, the reason we went in, with such low expectations, if you haven't heard, the history of the production of this movie was kind of fraught. They originally hired the 2 directors, Chris Lord and Phil Miller. I'm not sure if I got the names.
I think it's Phil Lord and Chris Miller.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who you might know from 21 Jump Street, 22 Jump Street, the Lego Movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, primarily comedy directors.
Yeah, they've obviously hired them with a vision of, they want to make this into a sort of light-hearted comedy romp.
Yeah.
You would think. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, why hire 2 really well-respected comedy directors off the back of the Lego Movie? It was really off the back of that they got the job.
Yeah. But you can, looking at that, you can see it's like a kind of, they're both kind of ensemble adventures to find like a MacGuffin type thing.
Sure. I mean, they're both hinged on the Joseph Campbell monomyth, hero with 1,000 faces idea,
As is every Star Wars.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is where George Lucas got his inspiration, reading the hero with 1,000 faces. So it kind of, so many movies hinge on that sort of basic motif and sort of use it to branch their story out from there.
But that didn't last long because...
Well, it did last quite a long time.
Actually, you're right.
The movie was about 90% done. Rumours have it that Lord and Miller showed Kathleen Kennedy and Lawrence Kasdan essentially a first cut of the movie. Probably loads of special effects shots, still just in animatic stage, not completed. And they were like really not happy because, again, all through kind of rumour and hearsay, it seems that they've been given sort of instructions about how to do certain shots and make sure you get lots of different angles of all these shots so we can work with it in editing, and they ignored all these like orders they were given from Kathleen Kennedy and other producers, I guess.
It seems like their kind of background in kind of improv comedy movies did not lend itself to like a highly regimented big budget blockbuster.
No, but you wonder, like, they surely were brought on knowing that these are not guys who are going to make a kind of dour Rogue One sort of type movie. They're going to make something that's a bit more, has a bit more character, and maybe Lucasfilm, maybe Kathleen Kennedy thought, well, we'll get them because they're kind of young, hip directors, but we'll make sure that they work to our sort of formula.
Yeah.
And they're young and they're not going to stand up to us, but it seems that they did. It seems they didn't want to play ball.
From again, it's all just rumours and hearsay, but from what I understand, from just kind of purely like a filmmaking point of view, they maybe weren't experienced enough, and like you say, like shots for coverage and like continuity, and like that. The plot is something that's going to be quite important in this movie.
Sure.
Whereas in like a 21 Jump Street or Lego Movie, it's about the gags and the chemistry between the characters and stuff.
Yeah, you're not looking out as much for that kind of level of coverage for your shots.
The like something like pacing and stuff is really important in an adventure movie.
Yeah.
And that's not really the case with comedies. It's kind of a bit more laid back. So maybe that didn't gel with what they were looking for.
Yeah, I think they on that point, it seemed that from stuff that I'd read a while back when this all kind of hit the fan, they weren't used to sort of working with such a massive crew.
Yeah.
So I heard things like the crew were just standing about with nothing to do because they didn't know how to direct the crew. Yeah. It just sounds like the whole production, they didn't really gel with the team, or the team didn't gel with them. But by all accounts, Woody Harrelson said he absolutely loved working with them. So there's kind of positives come out
Donald
of that. Donald
Glover's had a good time as well. I mean, he comes from a comedy background as well himself. Sure. But yeah, the likes of like Alden Ehrenreich and Amelia Clark kind of were quite happy to see them go, from what I've heard.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was reading an interview with Amelia Clark where she said that Ron Howard like basically saved the movie. Okay. And that it was nice to have some direction other than B film noir.
Oh, okay.
So maybe that sheds some light on what their kind of director style was.
So they were just wanting to do a sort of pastiche of a film noir in their style, but they didn't really know how to go about directing it, except for just act like you're in a film noir.
Yeah, or they didn't really have an understanding or like much care for the depth of the characters, maybe.
But then, in their defense, is there much depth to Amelia Clark's character?
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll get into that, but I mean, I don't know. I think Ron Howard also said that the Lord and Miller's fingerprints are all over this movie still, and I can see it when I was watching it. You can see little touches that have been left in, because apparently he reshot 80% of the movie is the thing we've been told.
Yeah, which wasn't the original plan. They wanted him to come in and just finish it up.
Finish it, and then they thought, well, while we're here, let's reshoot
a
bunch. And I think one of the reasons is so that they could get them off the director credit. The Directors Guild of America have a very strict percentage that you need to have shot to, or not shot to not get credit, essentially.
But on that note, I don't think it felt like two films gelled together. You know, it wasn't Justice League, which clearly suffered from that.
God. Yeah,
even Rogue One, like it was clear where the reshoots were and stuff like that.
You could feel there were like two different movies that had been kind of Frankenstein together.
Yeah.
This didn't feel like that. It was a cohesive movie, which really surprised me. There were moments where shots, or scenes rather, would kind of cut off a little more abruptly than I would have thought. It was almost like they sort of didn't have an ending to that scene, so they kind of quickly jumped to the next scene. There were a few moments like that where the pacing sort of seemed a little off, and I was thinking, I wonder if that's because they just didn't have the footage to kind of say how that scene ended, and they're just like, right, done with that scene, next scene now. Apart from that, it did feel like Ron Howard's movie, and I got to say, like, you know, if Ron Howard did direct 80% of this movie, I think he's done a great job.
Yeah, like he deserves a lot of credit for putting out what was, from what we hear, a pretty big fire.
Yeah, and then also having to kind of stand behind what seems to be a bit of a cursed chalice or poison chalice. This kind of like everyone's all the Star Wars fans seem to be kind of bickering amongst themselves. There's this kind of like, Star Wars fans now seem to be so militant about what they like and don't like, and yet if you ask them what they like and don't like, no one can give you a straight answer. It's like constantly trying to pander to every single possible facet of the story. It's becoming an impossibility, and he's just put out, like, in my mind, I think I put it in my Letterboxd review, just a damn fine adventure movie.
Yeah, like that's the smart thing to do, is just like put that out of your mind and just make a good film.
Yeah. I think, though, you can put it out of your mind so much where you make a film that is super divisive, a la The Last Jedi, where Rian Johnson's like, we're not going to do any of the things that you guys want to see.
But I think that was more him having it very much in his mind and making a conscious decision.
Absolutely. But he made a conscious decision to ignore, like, what he was, all the sort of Snoke theories and all the theories about this and that and all the deep dive videos about the most minutiae, like, tiny details of plot. He's like, fuck that.
Guess what? The movie was better for it.
They made a great movie for it, but don't forget. I mean, I think we both know that it's created this huge sort of split between like fans or the very idea of fandom is
and
sort
there
of
is
becoming
an imbalance in the Force, you might say.
Yeah. Fuck off. It's such a problematic thing now, the whole Star Wars fandom, because the idea of a Star Wars fan has become somebody I wouldn't want to have a conversation with now.
Yeah.
And yet I consider myself to be a fan of Star Wars because I like the Star Wars movies, and I'm sure you do as well, and we had a discussion about this last week. How did we get onto this? We were talking about Ron Howard and just, like
you said, he deserves a big old pat in the back for doing such a good job.
Absolutely. And just for coming into a project that was rife with these problems and being able to put out something that just looks like a movie, and it feels like a movie, not 2 or 3 movies pieced together. Well done.
So the kind of what you read the synopsis there, but the story starts with a young Han Solo on we'll get into that in a wee minute, but it starts with a young Han, let's say, on the planet
Corellia. His home world,
Yep.
as we've been led to believe. Yeah.
He is an orphan. He is running with like a pack of criminals.
Yeah,
stealing
yeah.
and
The whole planet seems to be basically run by a bunch of gangsters.
Yeah.
The Lady Proxima, was that the name of the
Yep.
the worm creature that basically is the sort of gangster of their region or whatever?
Yeah, that felt like kind of old Star Wars to me. Just this weird.
That felt so Lord and Miller. That big worm that's in charge of the gang.
Yeah.
Like, that is a Lord and Miller gag right there. Like, there's a big crazy worm creature. They're running with like a crime syndicate, but they sort of set the planet up as it's basically an industrial planet. The Empire is there. They don't give a shit about anyone that lives there.
It's like
It's
the whole planet's a massive dock.
It's
They're
just for
making
making
ships,
star
yeah.
destroyers and stuff. Yeah.
And that's some cool imagery. Like you see them, like the action mainly takes place kind of low to the ground, but you see overhead. You know, it's like that kind of opening part of the 2009 Star Trek, where you see the Enterprise being built, kind of like massively taking up a huge portion of the sky.
Sure.
Like, you know, you look up and you see these star destroyers like incomplete. It was a cool visual.
Yeah, it was cool. I think it was in the first or second trailer.
Yeah. But him and his young lady
girlfriend.
I guess girlfriend, yeah.
Yeah.
Have kind of dreams of getting out there and going off and doing their own thing. And one thing leads to another. And Han finds himself on his own, enlisted in the Imperial Navy.
Yeah, they get split up.
Yeah. And he's trying to find his way back to her. That's kind of the crux of it, right?
Yeah, essentially he gets off planet, she doesn't, but when he gets off planet he realises that all he needs to do is get back to her to get her off planet again. So yeah, he has a plan to, save enough money through joining the Empire, which itself is just a way to kind of escape the people that are trying to bring him back.
How ironic, running from the Empire by joining the Empire.
Yeah, well, he was running.
He's running from
the criminal syndicate to get away from them, so joins the Empire. So he joins one set of bad guys to get.
Yeah.
But then it's clever. They don't paint the Empire out as total bad guys as such to begin with. It's just they're just the sort of ruling
just
government.
A way of life. Yeah.
But then very quickly we cut to 3 years later.
And Han meets a series of characters. Some of them we know, some of them we're meeting for the first time.
Yeah.
And kind of that leads to what I think is like the biggest strength of the movie. I should say I don't think the movie's perfect. Like, I gave it 4 stars on Letterboxd. You did the same.
Yep.
It has issues, which
Yeah,
we'll talk about later.
There are some flaws to this movie that I don't think anyone would debate with you.
But my favourite thing about it was something I thought was really lacking in Rogue One was I think that the characters and the cast are all really good. They all work well together. They're all likeable. They're all they all have some sort of personality to them, which I did not find with Rogue One.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot more personality to the characters in Solo. I don't think I would include all of the cast in that. I think there's 1 or 2 that are fairly underdeveloped, and I think perhaps due to just like trying to reshoot and restructure a movie, there's some character strands that have maybe been left by the wayside a little bit. There's certainly an arc that I think was probably part of the original story that seems to have been kind of discarded, and it seemed a little awkward.
Who's?
That would be the Emphas Nest character arc. Emphas Nest is the sort of small time villain, not the big bad of the movie, but
I don't know. That felt like it reached a conclusion.
I don't know if you want to get into it as such.
We'll get into that in a wee bit later on.
Sure. It's not that it didn't reach a conclusion. It felt like they were probably originally building to some other kind of reveal that's a little more familial, shall we say. And I've read some stuff about that where that's possibly something that they kind of didn't have time to redo.
All right, okay. Well, yeah, but make sure you remember that when they get the spoilers, because I do want to know what you're talking about.
Probably won't.
But I don't know how much of this me liking the characters thing is just because I know them all already. I know that I like Han and Lando and Chewie, and
sure,
I'm predisposed to being familiar with them and stuff.
There's also the new characters though, where we meet them first. This kind of gang of gangsters, like a little gang, led by
robbers,
Woody
basically.
Harrelson. Yeah, I mean, this is how Han gets into the lifestyle, because he's trapped in a horrific trench warfare where he's just seen like his commanding officer get blown to pieces, and the Empire are then painted out as a sort of horribly oppressive invasion force. They are invading this foreign planet. Han challenges his squad commander or whatever, and says, we're the aggressors here, we're invading. Woody Harrelson and his gang, Beckett is his character, their gang are there to nick stuff, basically, to do a job.
What I liked about that as well is like it shows how disposable the kind of grunts of the Empire are.
Yeah.
Like they're just throwing wave after wave at them, and they're.
I like the style of the infantry as well. They weren't all done up in white stormtrooper armor.
Yeah.
They were
Like
dirty,
and muddy,
and they were just like, Han has been expelled from flight school at this point,
Yeah.
we're told, and he's just like thrown into the trenches, and then the helmet has got a slight stormtrooper kind of look to it on his head.
Yeah,
but
the visor's reminiscent, but still,
it's a new kind of design. It's a bit more gritty, but like without getting into like over the top grittiness, like sort of like, oh, everything needs to be super gritty. It's still a fun movie. This little section of the movie though felt like something we hadn't seen, which was like trench warfare, to the extent where the stuff in Rogue One, there was some cool action sequences in Rogue One, but we never got a feeling of like how oppressive and horrible like actual warfare is. It was just some people running across a set piece on a beach.
Yeah.
This felt kind of down and dirty, right up in the middle of it all.
What I liked as well is how easily Han like signs up. Like they have like a kind of kiosk at a bus station that says sign up for the Empire, and they'll just take anyone because like they're just going to send you into like a war to have you be cannon fodder to kill however many people you can before you yourself get shot in the head
or blown to pieces. Yeah, absolutely. And let's not forget though, it's a sort of like, how can I get out of this airport, without being caught by the people who want to take me back to this gang life on Corellia, and he just wants to escape. So that's pretty much his only option.
Yeah. I liked how clearly the kind of the goals of the story were set up pretty early on. Like, what needs to happen and how they need to do it, and then it kind of just gets going. Like the first act is a wee bit spotty, but as soon as they kind of have their objective, I think it really goes. Yeah,
I mean, we get a little. It's not like a text crawl, but we get a little bit of text at the start that just basically in a couple of paragraphs explains the world, and
it could easily have been a crawl. Like, I mean, it wouldn't have the same tone that the film needed to set, but
it would have had a strange. Yeah, it would have been a bit too small for a crawl, if that makes sense. Like, it wouldn't have had a grand explanation of everything. There was quite a short amount of text as well. But
I don't know, man. Like 3 paragraphs is standard for a Star Wars crawl.
Alright, fair enough. But it certainly kind of throws you in there and introduces you to, here's the MacGuffin, which is hyperfuel.
Yes.
Coaxium, I think they keep calling it as well. So there's a sort of desire and a need for this hyperfuel. The Empire, of course, being like the bad guys, are just like mining it, and we'll go to any lengths to get it, as will anyone.
It's not like, the universe is at stake if we don't get this. It's like, it's worth a lot of money, so we would like it.
So people like it. People like to steal it. People. So it sort of sets up that kind of like little sort of seedy underworld society as well, of like, what are the gangsters after? It's like, well, they're after stuff that's valuable in this universe, and I guess the Empire at this point are looking at kyber crystals and all that stuff for to power their weapons, but whereas the kind of lower rungs are like, well, let's steal this fuel.
And like, so from there we get introduced to Lando and the Millennium Falcon and all these old kind of familiar stuff.
The introduction to Lando was cool at the sabacc table.
Sabacc.
Yeah.
That, like, it's interesting what they've taken from the now non-canon EU and what they've twisted, like, because it was always kind of, it was never said in the movies that he won it in a card game of sabacc, but somehow the fandom just know that, and it's because it was in all these books and comics and stuff like that.
Yeah, but I mean, by God, getting rid of that expanded universe was a very clever move, because that was a garbage pile of monstrosities.
A mixed bag, shall we say.
Yes.
It's good.
Shows.
It's good that they can take what they want and what they don't want.
Yeah.
Similar with Han being in the Imperial Army.
Yeah, which was a sort of expanded universe idea, wasn't it?
Yeah, they have their own little twist on it in the film. Like, that's cool.
I like how they subverted the sort of expectations of how Han and Chewie might have met, which we've always kind of been led to believe, I guess, again, through expanded universe stuff. There's this life debt idea, but it just seems like they help each other out and get on really well, and Chewie sticks around.
Yeah, and that I think is kind of, all that stuff is the best stuff in the movie. I think the relationship with Han and Chewie.
I think the relationship between Han and Chewie is as strong as we've seen it in any Star Wars movie. They've got a new guy playing Chewbacca now, Jonas something or other. He's a Finnish guy.
Yeah.
So he can actually do some stuff now. I mean, Peter Mayhew is now getting on, and he's got very poor knees because he's like very tall man with so like he's had a lot of surgery on his knees, so he can't move around so easy. So this guy, we get a kind of younger Chewie anyway in the film, but he moves. He sure moves. This guy's like a fairly young ex-basketball player. But just the way that they interact together is awesome. I also thought, speaking of chemistry, that the interaction between like Lando and L3 was really cool.
Yeah, that was an interesting relationship. Like,
pretty unexpected. Some of the sort of
because you're used to seeing Lando be kind of like, you know, the suave, cool guy, but like he's kind of on the back foot with her because she's like so abrasive.
She's more sort of cool and suave than him in some ways. Like, she'll openly talk about like we've got a droid basically openly talking about sexual stuff to Lando, and he's like don't tell anyone. He's quite shy about it all.
Yeah. Like, how did you take that conversation? Because I took it to be like when she first says to Kira that, you know, he has a thing for her and she's like not interested. I wasn't sure if that was supposed to be played for, oh, it's funny because she's a droid and he's a human and that's weird, or if it was played for like, you know, she in her head she thinks Lando's in love with her when she's just big-headed about it, when in fact he's not.
I took it more that she actually has feelings for him but didn't want to say as much, so basically was spinning it to say, oh, you know, he loves me. I thought it was just, I wouldn't look into it too much. It was obviously played for laughs as well, the idea that there's a sexual relationship between Lando and his robot. You know, his robot isn't his property. Like, you know, Luke Skywalker started Star Wars in 1977, like, owning C-3PO and R2-D2. They were just equipment for his uncle's moisture farm. They weren't friends.
Yeah.
Han Solo used to treat 3PO like a piece of equipment. He didn't think of him as his pal. So like having this like relationship between L3 and Lando was certainly like an interesting, novel way to look at it.
That's her whole thing, isn't it? That's her whole character in this movie as well.
Yeah, having a revolution for the droids.
Yeah.
Some of I got a real chuckle when they were going to that place in the story to get the hyperfuel to the mines of Kessel.
Yes, the
and
famous Kessel spice mines.
Or not even, it wasn't even when they were at the Kessel spice mines, it was probably before then when they were at the Sabak gambling den, and there was Ron Howard's brother, Clint, running the like robot wars essentially between the droids, which they had like gonk droids like getting battered and various other droids. That got a good laugh out of me. I thought it was really funny the way it all had been staged.
Yeah, because that would happen, you know, if you had these.
Sure.
And she tries to liberate them,
and has a brilliant like moment later in the film where she does start to liberate them all, and then there's basically, again, this is Lord and Miller like territory, the whole droid uprising on Kessel. Like that part seemed to me like total Lord and Miller. It was hilariously done. Just this ridiculous, because it doesn't fit Star Wars thematically. It doesn't feel like the droids would rise up and fight against the captors, but it just worked really well as a fun moment, but also as a sort of slightly poignant moment in the thing.
What did you think of, like, I don't want to get into too much of a political discussion, but like I've heard people have wildly different opinions on that whole section and her whole character.
Yeah, like she's a social justice warrior, it's virtue signaling and all this stuff. It's like, man, like it's a fun space adventure movie, and we talked about this before, like Star Wars was never supposed to portray like a conservative worldview. It was always, if you were really to get down to brass tacks, it really always was a left-leaning franchise. It was about, you know, being more open to people of other cultures and other species, and just, so unfortunately, like we're talking about this fan base that's sort of fractioned. Definitely half of it just seems to be like kind of a right-wing thuggery or something. Like, thuggery is maybe a little strong at words, but yeah. What do you think?
Like, I think it's a shame that in this day and age you can't do what is on the surface of it, you know, a kind of a well-meaning thing without being accused of being pandering.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way to win.
No.
You know? Either they don't do anything, get called out for not doing anything.
Yep.
Or do something, get called out for being too pandering, and you know.
This idea of like, Star Wars is just a feminist social justice warrior thing now. It's like, man, like these guys are just angry. They're just angry about stuff, and it's like, calm down and just enjoy the space movie, for God's sake. Obviously, like if these people have ever understood a sci-fi movie or any movie, it deals with political themes of the time particularly sci-fi, does so in a really good way
Yeah.
that can deal with these ideas and sort of shed a light on the problems of the day. And surely one of the problems of today is like populism and right-wing politics and the rise of the so-called alt-right
And equality.
and equality and equity. The whole these are problems, but you get the people who are saying that Star Wars is turned into this SJW fest. It's like, man, you're not having to face these problems maybe, but these problems do exist. So
And also, in 1977, who do you think the Empire was based on?
yeah, well, we talked about this before. It's like the Empire was the American invading force in Vietnam, and the rebels were based on the Viet Cong.
And also,
George
like,
Lucas literally said this. Like, it's not even like, oh yeah, you could interpret it that way. It's like, that's what I was thinking of when I was writing these movies.
and they're called stormtroopers. Like,
Yeah,
do you know who else were called stormtroopers?
we do. I mean, yeah.
Crazy!
Nazis, man. Fucking Nazis. Anyway, yeah, the movie for me is first and foremost a fun space adventure movie. But see, if you're like a nutjob right wing idiot, like, I don't care if you don't enjoy this movie. Like, go and find something else that you can enjoy. This stuff is not supposed to be pandering to you. So
On the flip side of that, it's frustrating when something comes out about like the whole Lando pansexual thing. If you don't know, there was an interview where
a red carpet interview.
okay, yeah, it's the perfect time to answer a heavy question like that. One of the writers,
It was Kazdan's son, John Kazdan.
yeah, John Kasdan, was asked, do you think Lando could be pansexual, meaning attracted to people regardless of their gender
Or species.
or species in this case? Yeah, and he was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I guess so.
There's robots and aliens and all sorts in there.
Why not?
Well, why not? And then that gets twisted into like Star Wars writer confirms Lando's pansexual. Da, da, da.
Yeah, it
And then,
turns into like a brilliant bit of clickbait for all
Yeah,
these
yeah.
websites. Yeah, yeah,
like people on both sides. Stop doing that.
yeah.
Stop, like monetizing like people's like personal struggles.
Yeah, here.
But anyway, back to the movie.
And I also don't think there's an argument to be made that Lando isn't pansexual. He's a sexual suave being in the Star Wars universe. Surely lots of guys in the Star Wars
Yeah.
universe and gals and worm alien creatures are all pansexual. I'm sure there's a lot of it in that universe, but Star
and like
Wars
that'll
is
mean
never-
something different and something that shouldn't really be that relatable to like our normal human person.
Exactly.
It's not like a victory.
No,
And nor is it like, a slap in the face.
it's how that universe would be if George Lucas had understood how to write a love story.
Yeah. So where were we?
Where indeed.
Let's talk a wee bit about. What shall I go first? I'll talk about the aesthetics and stuff first because the next part will lead more into spoilers.
Yeah.
The way the film looked,
Problems.
very very dark.
It's like they're trying to hide something.
Yeah. What is that about?
I think you remember when we were talking about Justice League. That was production problems, like up out your ears, right?
Uh-huh.
A lot of production problems. You go and see the movie. The color temperature is all weird compared to how it was in the trailers. In the trailers, it was that dour Zack Snyder. Everything was really dark and grimy look. And then they'd obviously just turned the contrast way up when they
It's
tried
just
to
like blood red filter over it,
and everything looked wrong because the costumes weren't designed to be seen in that kind of lighting. Everything just looked silly because they were designed for that kind of dark blue brown look. This seems like maybe just to try and cover for the fact that maybe the reshoots looked quite different to how Lord and Miller
Yeah,
had originally
maybe.
shot some of the sequences.
Yeah.
It seemed like they were just trying to kind of put a filter on top
very
of it all
washed out. Yeah.
to just kind of hide the fact that the color timing and the color temperature didn't match up between the two different versions of the film.
Like, I wonder if that was something that was a holdover. Like, I know I'm just basing this on one thing that Amelia Clark said, but if she's talking about making a noir movie, maybe they wanted it kind of smoky and shadowy.
But there's smoky and shadowy, and then there's like, it looks like they've put an Instagram filter in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Like-
Yeah, maybe that was something they had to, like you said, just put over all of it so that it
So that
looked,
the smoky and shadowy look wasn't so smoky and shadowy.
yeah, so that it looked like, a cohesive thing.
There's some, I don't know if you've seen the Red Letter Media solo
I just
review.
watched it today, actually.
They put it up last night. And I'm sure they exaggerated some of the shots when they were talking about the cinematography, where they were like actual shots of the movie. There's parts where there are literally black silhouettes like walking around, and I can't quite remember if that is how it actually looked. There's certainly moments where I was like, why is this so dark?
Yeah.
I was also watching it in 3D in IMAX,
That wouldn't help then, yeah.
obviously the darkening effect you get from 3D is going to just increase that. It certainly seemed an odd choice, and I thought that right from that first trailer. I thought this looks weird. It looks kind of too smoky.
Yeah.
And
we don't mean dark in terms of like, you know, the Dark Knight, Batman Begins style. Like, you mean dark, like lighting wise, you can't see what's going on.
Yeah, it's like they've turned the lights down or they've turned the contrast down in post production or something. It is like you're saying. There's been maybe two contrasting styles of cinematography, and they've had to kind of slap something to make them look the same.
After we saw it, my girlfriend's first comment was, "It was okay. I hope they release it in color."
Well, touche.
Yeah.
Like it's a fair point. Did you not find though you definitely breathed a sigh of relief when you got out into like a nice bright desert? Because it like at least, even though again it still had that kind of strange grimy effect. Desaturated is a great word. It's still, at least you were like, oh, thank God, some like sunlight at last. So maybe there's part of that is intentional, in that when we're on Corellia we're supposed to feel kind of suffocated and claustrophobic by it, but it definitely felt weird. Yeah,
especially because like, I mean, The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens are quite vibrant.
They are, but perhaps another way that Kathleen Kennedy wanted to sort of distinguish these standalone movies from the saga movies, as they call them. You know, I think they have to get away from the idea that everything has to look the same as well. So in that respect, like, kudos to them. Like, I don't think everything has to like be a carbon copy of what came before it.
It definitely has a look.
It has a look, and in fairness, like when we're talking about the aesthetics of it, I'm starting to remember like how dark and horrific that war scene was again from the start, and it was probably unintentionally emphasized by that strange kind of shadowy
there was a
look.
point there where like hands wearing like not really a helmet, like a hat kind of.
And you can't see his face.
And I didn't know it was him.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was him that was talking.
He's in so much.
Yeah.
His face has not been lit properly.
Sorry, I should have said, what do we think of Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo? An impossible task to step into the shoes of Harrison Ford and one of the most beloved, iconic film characters of all time.
Sure. I thought he was great. I really did. I thought he was great. I think, again, this ties into what we're talking about with like aesthetics and trying not to make everything look the same. I think they need to get away from this. Everyone needs to sort of sound and feel the same. They've recast the role, so the actor should be making it his own. Now, obviously, they've recast an iconic role, as you say, but they need to get away from this dangerous idea that people need to be doing impressions of other characters.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people online saying, "Oh, you should have hired, this guy who was like an impressionist from a short film, whatever." It's like, well, no, he's not an actor, so why don't put in someone who isn't an actor in your film?
Exactly. It's like people saying as well, the only person who can play Luke Skywalker is Sebastian Stan because he looks like him. It's like, man, like they could hire someone who looks nothing like him. It's about getting the kind of the tone of the character right. For me,
did you ever see Fassbender or Steve Jobs?
I did.
He was fantastic as him, I thought.
And he never looks like, he doesn't look a
Doesn't
thing
look
like him
anything
when you
like him,
think
no.
about it, does he? But he was incredible. That was an amazing movie, man.
It was very good, yeah.
Yeah. So, what did you make of Alden Ehrenreich? By the way, had you seen him in anything before?
I'd seen him in Hail Caesar.
Me too.
Which he was fantastic in.
I've seen him in one other thing, which is a very underseen movie, which is Warren Beatty's movie Rules Don't Apply, the one about Howard Hughes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was not a great movie, but Alden Ehrenreich was pretty solid in it, in a pretty unremarkable movie.
No, yeah, I thought he did a really admirable job with it. For such a daunting task.
Yep.
He didn't try and do an impression, but I think he got the spirit of what a 10 years younger Han Solo would be.
And the spirit of that surely is just open to interpretation as well. He could have done, I think he just had a really solid performance. The fact that it didn't sound like or look like Harrison Ford, for me, has no bearing, because it's like he hasn't become that character by that point anyway.
I thought he did a good job with, like, every so often there's little mannerisms or facial tech or the way he would say something. I was like, he's done his homework here. Like, I feel like he knew the character.
Sure.
And importantly, I can see the line from one to the other, like how he will grow into, the smuggler from the Mos Eisley Cantina.
Sure. Well, apparently they have 2 sequels lined up, although I believe Felicity Jones was signed on for 2 movies for Rogue One.
Yeah, I think that's just a contingency thing.
So I wonder if they will actually do two more movies, or if they'll just include him in 2 other movies, like they have what's his face, Robert Downey Jr. signed on for X amount
Yeah,
of Marvel movies,
yeah.
and he appears in other characters' movies, so possibly that.
I thought the soundtrack was really good.
I was actually listening to it before you got here. The soundtrack was spot on for me.
Like, it has some very non-Star Warsy sounding stuff in it.
The Memphis Nest
Yeah,
soundtrack.
yeah,
that's
exactly,
a standout.
yeah.
So cool.
First time since like Phantom Menace, where there's been like a new kind of like, oh, this sounds a bit different. I think.
It had a little bit of an Indiana Jones feel to it, but
Yeah.
not in a. I don't mean that in a derogative way.
But more like a kind of Easterny influencey.
Yeah, something.
Sound.
And who is it that did the soundtrack? It wasn't John Williams. He did the main theme. The soundtrack was done by.
You'd have to look up. It wasn't John Williams, and it wasn't Michael Giacchino, or the John Williams Jr.
Yeah, Giacchino did the soundtrack for Rogue One, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although he was only given like 2 months to do it, I think. Like
Yeah, because
it wasn't a long time.
Alexander Desplat dropped
Yeah.
out at the last minute.
Because usually I like Giacchino an awful lot. He's like one of my absolute favourites.
Sure.
But I think he could have done better with Rogue One.
The composer for this was John Powell, whose other credits include Shrek, Shrek 2, X-Men The Last Stand,
Oh.
and the How to Train Your Dragon movies, and the Bourne movies. I mean, he's good.
Alright, the How to Train Your Dragon movies have good soundtracks.
Yeah.
Scores, I should say, sorry, not soundtracks.
Or scores, yep. And also Face Off.
I don't remember any of this music in Face Off.
I want to take his face off.
That's my only abiding memory.
So, yeah, he's obviously a working composer. This guy's done a lot of stuff. He's done Mr. and Mrs. Smith and stuff. So, yeah, he's a working composer. I think that was a great score. Like you say, it's unique, but it's got that little comforting Star Wars feel to it.
It has the traditional sounds that you would associate with Star Wars.
Yeah, sort of the little motifs. Or
that's the word I was looking for. Yeah,
touchstones, if you like. Yeah.
Now, before we get into the wee spoiler section, let's talk as much as we can about any references and callbacks and stuff like that. Like, being that this is technically a prequel,
Yeah.
It runs the risk of doing that thing. I've called it here the Prometheus effect of explaining things that don't need explained.
Patent pending.
And it does that once or twice. I thought on the whole, any references and stuff, like we said at the start of the show, like the plot doesn't hinge on them. A lot of it's like just like a place name here or a character name there.
Yeah.
For the most part, there are one or two things that stand out.
Yeah, we'll get into that maybe in the spoilers, but certainly the one thing that seemed a little odd to begin with was the constant focus on those dice at the start. It's like, remember these dice? Remember these dice from 5 months ago from The Last Jedi? Remember these dice from 1977 when an English set decorator just picked them up out of a cupboard and hung them there for something?
Yeah.
Like, they were never intended to be this big thing, but Rian Johnson turned them into something that was sort of emblematic of like people's memories of Han Solo. It's funny, they're not in Empire or Jedi, the dice.
I think it's because like what else was he going to give him, like his blaster?
Yeah,
like,
well, they I mean, that was somebody else gave him his blaster.
No, I mean in Last Jedi, like what else was he going to pass on to?
Yeah, you're not going to pass
Leia?
a gun on to Leia.
Yeah.
Here's a gun.
Here's
Sure.
his trousers with the red stripes on them.
So it's interesting that they've carried on that motif from a movie that was pretty much going to be in production around the same sort of time.
Did you know, however, that there was a unfilmed scene in The Force Awakens where when Han and Chewie come back onto the Falcon, he hangs the dice back up?
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
that would have been a nice through line had that stayed in.
Again, though, like, we don't need all this. Like, some of that stuff
Yeah.
becomes too obvious and too Prometheus-like. If you like,
Yeah.
everything needs a backstory. You know what I mean?
Like that's what. So, although I don't think any of the callbacks and references were too on the nose for the most part,
yeah.
The whole thing kind of suffers from, and again, this is by no means the fault of the original trilogy. And I don't even really blame it that much on the current filmmakers. Like, everything in those first three movies has been analysed to death and taken on such a life of its own that, like we said,
Even by George Lucas himself
Like-
when he was making his prequels.
the tiniest bit of set dressing now has a history behind it that people expect something from.
And I think that's problematic, and I think the quicker they can kind of get away from like slavishly having to adhere to that kind of dogmatic approach, the better.
Yeah.
And I don't think they felt like totally bound to that in this film. I think they just had some fun with stuff. It's this idea that like every sentence that's spoken has to then have its own backstory.
Yeah, like the Kessel Run and Corellia were just throwaway lines, mine arcs, throwaway lines.
Sure. But like for me, they handled the Kessel Run really well.
I thought so too.
It was a good fun moment, and it was clever how they kind of
Like a wee self-aware like retconning of a mistake George Lucas clearly made by not understanding what a parsec was.
Sure. So there's that. But you could also have written that out by being like, well, in that universe, a parsec is that
which is, to be honest, which I thought they would do.
would have been just fine as well. So I think Lucas had a problem with the prequels when he really was trying to kind of make everything
just one problem.
match up. This is one of the main problems was trying to kind of make everything match all these different sort of lines of, like you say, throwaway dialogue, and it all just sort of seemed like he was focusing on all the wrong stuff to try and make everything match up. Whereas if he just ignored like having to kind of have a perfect match, he could have made 3 solid movies. Well, he could have written, with the help of some other writers and directors, some good movies. Anyway, speaking of, I wanted to bring this up before I forgot, like callbacks and references. I really liked when he's standing in that airport terminal, the Join the Empire advert that's running with the Imperial March
I
theme
thought that
song.
was a bit cheesy. I too much.
Totally understand that. I was interested to know what you thought of it, because I started laughing quite considerably in the cinema, and no one else was laughing, so I was like quite self-conscious at that moment that I was enjoying it far more than anyone else.
I rolled my eyes a wee bit at that, but not as much as the bit that followed it. Which, should we get into spoilers now?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Spoilers!
That's the spoiler klaxon.
Yeah, if you haven't seen this movie, then we would both recommend it highly. Go and check it out, and if you don't care about spoilers, then we're going to talk about some stuff now anyway.
So this may be the worst instance in any film, maybe, of a needless explanation of something. Is where
I know where you're
Han
going.
goes to the desk and he's trying to sign up for the Imperial Army, and they say, "What's your name?" And he says, "Han." And they say, "Han what?
What's your tribe? What's your
yeah,
people?
Who are your people?" And he says, "I don't have anyone." And the guy's like, "Okay, Han. May as well look to the camera. Solo."
Yeah, he didn't need to have that explained. It could have just been his name. But it didn't. It didn't bother me. I remember reading a rumor that was going to happen in this film. It leaked off the set, and I thought that's interesting. I wonder how that's going to happen. Probably because like someone will tell him he can't trust anyone, so he assumes the role, he assumes the name. I'll call myself Han Solo then, so I never trust anyone again. Yeah. But like it was done much less ridiculously than that. I didn't think it was a problem. Did you have a problem with it? Like when they said that, I didn't mind it.
No, I thought it was stupid.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't need it. But
I understand that he's an orphan.
Sure.
But he talks about his dad in the movie as well.
And he has a name. Yeah. He must have a name. But then
Yes.
I guess there's the idea that if he's an orphan, he might have forgotten his name. He might not know what his name is. Han might just be a name that these gangsters have given him that he basically is owned by. He is essentially a slave, isn't he? When you think about it. He's sort of like Ray. He's working for portions.
Yeah.
So
yeah, very similar to Ray.
The idea,
I mean, like they never explain. Like Anakin Skywalker never walked in the sky. You know.
No, sure.
We don't
but,
need a scene of that happening.
No, I don't think it was necessary. But by the same token, I don't think it was a bad scene. I thought it was like it got a little chuckle out of me. I must have been in a great fucking mood when I watched this film. I was laughing at everything. I was like, this is great. I had a little thing of popcorn, man. That was probably doing it.
A little bit of heat stroke, maybe.
little heat stroke. I'd had 6 beers.
Who knows what it was?
I know. No, I had my little tiny popcorn that I was calorie counting. So,
but no, I thought that was dumb.
It might have been dumb, but it could have been dumber. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say.
I just don't know who they think that's for. Who's going to be like, that's brilliant. My whole life I have wondered why he's called Han Solo.
Apparently, while we're on this, that's the line that sold Lucasfilm on making this film.
What?
I read an article that apparently that's the line where they went, do we really need a Han Solo origin story? And then John Kasdan and Lawrence Kasdan were like, get this, we're going to have a moment where we learn how he got the name Han Solo. They're like, right, where do we sign this check? How much do you want for this? Now, apparently that was like the thing that sold them on it.
That's surprising.
Because they were going to do the Bounty Hunter movie before this with Josh Trank, before Josh Trank became like a crazy drug-addled fool. Went mad, yeah. Allegedly. We need to throw an allegedly in.
Yeah, we don't want Josh Trank coming after us.
Yeah. So,
so the other thing which you had a big problem with that I thought was fine.
Wow, right. Now, I really like this movie, but honestly, are we talking about the ending?
Yes.
Like, towards the end, Han has been betrayed by everyone, obviously. Emilia Clarke.
Just before we get into that, I like how Emilia Clarke technically betrays him, but like also kind of saves him. Like she knows more than he does. She knows that they're both screwed if they both try and go away.
Yeah.
So she sacrifices kind of both herself. Well, no, she's okay.
She sacrifices her position underneath the Paul Bettany character.
And like, yeah, she's like, I will take on this life of like darkness and bad stuff.
Working for the Crimson
Dawn.
Yeah, it reminded me of Die Hard, like Hans Gruber's name of ridiculous terrorist organisations that he's read about in Time magazine.
It's not Crimson Tide. That's the Tony Scott movie.
Crimson Dawn.
Yes. So yeah, she's like, I have to let you go because I'm already too far gone, but I won't sell you out. I'll let you get away free. That was a nice little thing, I thought.
Yeah, and are you talking about how she reports what's happened to her boss over the telecom after Paul Bettany has met his fateful end? Right, now, Paul Bettany, by the way, I thought was cool. I thought he was good, considering as well he came on at the last minute as a new character.
Replacing Michael K. Williams, who was supposed to play some sort of cat alien man.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And I know that he had to leave, or they had to cut him out because he couldn't commit to like ridiculous reshoots. But so, setting the scene for that. So, you know, Paul Bettany is gone. Dryden Voss.
Yep.
He's our sort of guy that sends him on the mission. He's a sadistic fucker, but I like the way he played it. Sort of polite, but like he's ready to. I mean, the first thing we see is him stabbing like a senator to death.
Yeah, and like at one point he says, as they're leaving to go and like do this last mission for him, he says, "Oh, and remember, if you mess up this time, I guess we'll be out of options."
Yeah,
but he's like implying, "I'm going to kill you."
I am going to kill you with a big smile on my face.
That was a good delivery.
Yeah, he did a really good job. He certainly had more opportunity to emote in this than he did as the Vision character in the Marvel movies. So, at the end of the movie, Emilia Clarke is like on a Star Wars hologram machine talking to, or reporting back to like the big boss who we've had hints of from Dryden Voss. Like, I report to someone too, you know.
Yeah, the leader of the kind of the 5 crime syndicates.
Yeah, and I actually did think this is going to be Darth Vader, isn't it? Like, and I thought that's ridiculous, but he would have his finger in all these pies, like trying to kind of control that side of things.
Oh, it'd be much worse if it was Vader.
I would have preferred it if it was Darth Vader somehow. It felt like it, because he deals with bounty hunters and we've seen him deal with sort of criminal scum like that. It felt appropriate. And then who can we dig out that's a real fan favourite? Darth Maul, who every other layperson who hasn't been keeping up with any Star Wars lore thinks he's dead. He was chopped in half at the end of that terrible movie that we saw in 1999. Like, why is he here? He looked terrible. The character looked ropey as fuck. He looked like he'd been CG altered somehow.
I think it was just because he was on hologram.
I think actually the reason is because Ray Park just isn't as like as trim as he used to be.
An older guy now.
Which is fine. I'm not age discriminating here. I just thought, like, why the hell would you put in a character from one of the least popular Star Wars movies in a film that up until that point has been doing a great job of differentiating itself from the other Star Wars movies?
Well, the reason is because he's a massive fan favourite.
Yeah,
and that terrible movie did not serve the character.
It was total fan service. Oh,
it was 100%.
To a point where like it's gone way beyond what they've done up until that point. I thought to the point where I'm thinking this feels like it doesn't belong in the movie. It feels like it's been crammed in by Kathleen Kennedy and other production staff. And Ron Howard's going, well, I'll go with it. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the kind of thing that Lord and Miller were like, we're not doing that. And they're like, right, you're leaving. Because...
Well, I agree with you that yes, it definitely feels crammed in and a studio decision. I still think it makes sense for that character and the situation. Like, I mean,
I'd prefer it if the character just stayed dead. I know that he's not dead because they brought him back in that Rebels cartoon show. How many people are going to see Solo? And by the way, not that many people have been going to see it, unfortunately. It's been low turnout.
That seems like a bunch of other factors are involved in that, though.
Not least this fucking weather.
Champions League final.
And that.
Memorial Day weekend. Don't
say Champions League final. You'll make a point for Marvel for that Ant-Man thing.
Oh, shit.
You're making their argument for them. So, anyway, what do I want to say here? What were you saying? I was so angry.
I was saying that I thought it made sense for the character.
That's what I'm saying is, how many of these people have watched the Rebels cartoon show? Not that many.
And the Clone Wars.
Which isn't technically canon anymore anyway.
Is that right?
That's correct.
I guess it was before the acquisition, wasn't it?
Yes. So, you've got Darth Maul with his robot legs. Fine. they're trying to set him up in a sort of Marvel-esque way, where it's almost like throwing in like Sam Jackson at the end to kind of give you a little teaser for the next film.
Yeah, that's what it felt like.
I mean, it's setting up your Obi-Wan film.
That is the implication, yeah. Or maybe he'll be involved in the Boba Fett film. If he's the leader of a crime syndicate, he's
yeah.
going to need bounty hunters,
And
presumably.
this is the thing. I think if they are going to go down that route, I hope they do it well. But I also think they could get away with having Darth Maul as a sort of character that's just in the shadows like that. I really don't want to see some guy with robot legs like getting into like a ridiculous lightsaber fight again. We were so close to having a Star Wars movie without a single lightsaber in it. He didn't even need to ignite
know,
it.
that's
He's
stupid.
in a hologram.
Yeah. It's like, hey, also, I have a lightsaber.
And apparently it's the one from Rebels. It's not that double-bladed thing. But I think I saw Rich Evans last night making the point, like, his only characteristic is he's a guy with a double-sided lightsaber and he doesn't even have that anymore.
But, like...
That's my point, that he doesn't even have that anymore.
In the Phantom Menace, he was, like, an incredibly cool character design, right?
Yeah.
And
he was style and no substance.
And they did nothing with it. So if they can give him some substance, that'll be cool.
Sure, but why not? Why do you need to bring him back? For God's
cheap
sake.
pop.
They'd already killed him. Like, just leave him be.
He's already
dead. So, honestly, it kind of... When my dad turned around to me and said, wow, that was amazing, I loved it, what did you think, son? I said, hey, because that 5-minute spell, like, soured the movie for a little while until I could think about it. And I was like, you know what? Don't let it sour it. The rest of the movie was solid as you like. That bit was, like, so unnecessary to me. And it's like you say, it's just to please rabid fanboys. But, like, why are they trying to please these people, man? Just make a movie. Don't cram this shit in for the sake of it.
I'll try and focus more on is trying to give a better, like, do justice to a cool character design.
I'll give you that. Let's see if they do. They've certainly not done it there, but I mean, it's just a tiny little cameo, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's weird, I'd never thought I'd say this, but I would have preferred Darth Vader. Which is ridiculous, but I get the impression that he's kind of... I've actually read some of the Star Wars comics that are now canon, and he has like a recurring trade paperback of his own now, where like the Darth Vader character, and he's involved in like criminal underworld stuff in those comics. Just seemed to me to make sense that he would be the guy that's sort of the puppet master of all these.
I think he's involved as a means to an end, though, like because he's not in charge of them. He has to deal with them.
Well, I get the impression that he's sort of the emperor's like, I'm far too important to deal with these fucking loons. You do it, and he's like, okay, I'll serve you. I'm the guy that does all your dirty work. So it made sense to me. I also thought at one point they might have Darth Vader like charging through the trenches in that war sequence. I was like, are they going to have Darth Vader here with his lightsaber? They didn't.
Yeah, that would have been way too much fan service if he's just in the background of a shot.
And yet somehow it wouldn't have been as bad as Darth Maul, just like snarling at Amelia Clarke. Yeah, that bit didn't sit right for me, but it's okay. I mean, different people are going to take from it what they will, but I guess they're just going to try and expand their sort of universe a little bit more and try and bring characters together from other parts of the franchise.
Do you know what I never thought I would say? I wouldn't mind a sequel to this movie. A direct Solo 2.
I wonder if we're going to get it. I mean, it seems to be underperforming. The budget is higher than any budget for any Star Wars movie that's come before it.
Because of the reshoots?
The production budget alone was $300 million. And now for marketing, I've got a feeling the marketing is going to have taken a hit from that. I think, usually they say a budget of $200 million, you're going to have a marketing budget of $200 million. I wouldn't imagine this has got a marketing budget of $300 million. Particularly because we've not seen that much marketing for it, and it seems to have suffered a bit as a result.
Like 2 months before it came out, yeah.
Yeah, so it seems like the reshoots have sort of leached off the marketing budget, but it's certainly got a long ways to go before it breaks even.
Hopefully it doesn't deter them in future, hopefully they keep on the track they're on, because I think this is a good movie. I thought Last Jedi was a great movie.
Yeah.
More power to them.
I liked the tone of this more than The Last Jedi. It felt more fun. It felt like something a bit more swashbuckling and a bit more adventurous, and just it felt like it had more in tone with the original movies than this new tone.
I guess that's why I liked Last Jedi though. Like
because
it felt new and fresh and bold.
Sure.
Whereas this is cut from the same cloth as A New Hope, definitely. Okay, well, we're kind of going to have to rush through the remainder of the show because we spent a long time talking about Solo.
Well, that's okay.
It's okay. It's the whole point of this episode.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think to conclude Solo, both of us would highly recommend that people check it out, despite a few misgivings.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Really interested to see someone's opinion on it who has never seen a Star Wars movie.
Wow.
Because I think they would really like it.
Or someone like my dad who didn't have a clue why Darth Maul was in it, but just went with it and enjoyed it anyway. He had no idea when this movie was set in the timeline. He was like, it has to be Darth Maul. It's back then when Darth Maul was just before that one with Darth Maul in it. I was like, it's not set around that time, Dad, but that's absolutely fine.
For example, again, my girlfriend who's not into Star Wars, she's seen the films because they're everywhere, but she's not like a massive fan of it. And she was like, oh, that was really cool because Darth Maul's really cool.
Yeah, she's wrong.
Okay, not moving that far away from this whole area, a piece of news. Everyone's reporting it as fact. No one's confirmed it yet, though, which is annoying because all the headlines are like, "Oh, you confirmed this is happening." It's just a rumor. James Mangold is the director of Logan. Is likely going to direct a Boba Fett movie.
Ah, yeah.
Good choice of director.
Yeah. You know my thoughts on Logan. I think it's kind of overrated. I really
Oh yeah, I
loved...
forgot you were so wrong with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you forgot that I can see clearly on this movie. It's, the first act of Logan is so good though, and I think talking of aesthetics and stuff, if you can make something that's as strong as just that first act in Logan, and with that kind of Boba Fett, or I think they're probably more likely to go down a kind of bounty hunters in general.
Yeah,
route.
I don't know if I said this to you before, but I was speaking to someone about it just today. I would love, when they were talking about the Josh Trank movie, my kind of idea for what I would do is basically the Great Race or Rat Race, if you want a more contemporary reference.
Sure.
It's still like 20 years old even. Basically that, where all the bounty hunters of the galaxy are all going after the one prize, and they're basically like fucking each other over constantly to try and beat each other to it. I think that'd be so much fun.
Sort of like the Kramer movie, It's a Mad, 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 Mad World.
I'll maybe.
Yeah, you're so uncultured, Alan.
Sorry, I know. Does that have spaceships in it?
No, it has big hot air balloons.
But it has Kramer in it, right?
Stanley Kramer, the film director.
His first name's Cosmo, and I don't think he's ever directed a film.
It might actually be a Sidney Lumet film now that I think about it. So
Lumet? You're so uncultured, Andy.
I don't even know if I've got any culture left in me after but anyway, yeah, no. What I like James Mangold for more than Logan, you may be surprised to hear, is he was responsible for a lot of reshoots on Hugh Jackman's Greatest Showman from last year.
I was not aware of that.
It came out at the end of last year, and it was a critical failure. Like, the critics hated it, and then it stayed in the cinemas for months and months and months, and it continues to come back for sing-along shows, and it's garnered this massive fan base, and I thought it was a terrific movie.
Following the Mamma Mia model.
Yeah, I guess it was, but I think it's, well and above that now in terms of its box office takings. But he was very much involved in the reshoots of that and getting it kind of more cohesive, because apparently the production was a bit of a nightmare on it.
Interesting that they're going from the likes of Josh Trank and Lord and Miller to Ron Howard and James Mangold, like two old hands, safe hands.
Sure, Ron Howard's actually the first Oscar-winning director to direct a Star Wars movie.
Yep, I believe it.
Yeah, it's true. I promise, I'm not lying to you. Yeah, so...
But Boba Fett, you could say it's a bad choice because he isn't a character, he's just a cool outfit.
Yeah.
Or you could say it's a good choice because they can do whatever they want with him because he's not much of a character yet.
It's a good choice because he's just a cool outfit when nothing's happened really with him yet, so we get to find out how he ended up falling into that hole.
By accident.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how it happened. Idiot. This is confirmed, and it's pretty exciting if you're into either Danny Boyle or James Bond. But Danny Boyle is directing the next James Bond.
Oh my god.
Yeah. I like the first 2/3 of most of Danny Boyle's movies. I don't think he knows how to finish a movie.
I think you're a madman.
28 Days Later, Sunshine.
Wonderful endings, both of those films.
No, it falls apart in the last.
See, I don't
The
think
Beach.
I think it reconstructs what an ending is thought of to be. I would not say they fall apart. I love both those movies.
I think they're good movies, but
The Beach, I can take your point.
But yeah, like when was like I know that what's the name of the guy that did the last two Bonds? I'm really blanking on his name.
The last is Sam Mendes.
Sam Mendes, yeah.
Yeah.
I know he
Great
is,
director.
Like, he's like a he's a well known director and stuff, but I don't think out with kind of film circles the average Joe would know his name.
Well, sure. I mean, they know American Beauty, but they maybe don't know who directed American
Whereas I
Beauty.
think Danny Boyle as a name is much more of a big deal.
Particularly in this country. A lot
Yeah,
of people
yeah,
just
yeah,
know
yeah.
him because of the Olympics thing as well. And did that big Olympics opening ceremony. But yeah,
I mean, here's the guy that train spawn.
and that, of course, yeah.
So there you go. That's pretty big news. I mean, it comes with it that Daniel Craig is still staying on for at least one more.
Yeah, apparently he would only stay on if Danny Boyle was
really?
directing. Yeah, so
Maybe he said that as a long shot of being like, Danny Boyle will never do it. I'll just say this and I can get out of it.
I think Daniel Craig's pretty solid, but I've only really enjoyed one of his Bond movies, which was Casino Royale.
Do you know, I'm not that into Bond. I just think it's, in this day and age, I think it's like just cheesy and silly, and the whole idea of his character is kind of outdated and laughable.
I think they need to reinvent it. I think they have done a good enough job of reinventing it a little bit, in the idea being that maybe James Bond is just a pseudonym that other people kind of pass down to
Yeah,
other
then
people.
he fucked that up with Skyfall though.
Yeah, that's true, by solidifying a singular backstory.
Yep.
Yep.
They did reinvent it, and they called it the Bourne trilogy.
Okay. Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
think Danny Boyle will do a good job, I would have thought. I've yet to see a Danny Boyle film that I didn't like, let alone that I didn't really like. Yeah, most of his movies I'm looking at them now are, really solid. Even some of his lesser ones I have a kind of soft spot for.
And finally, Jamie Foxx has been cast in a reboot of the movie Spawn.
Yeah,
You don't take this the wrong way, but you seem like someone who, in your younger years, would have really liked Spawn.
a satanic hero. He sells his soul to the devil. Is that right? I was never really into Todd McFarlane stuff or comics in general growing up. But I think I saw a little bit of the movie once when I was younger, and
I saw it when I was way too young.
Right. Okay.
And I was like, this isn't for me.
But even younger, I could tell that it was a shitty movie that it hadn't been made properly.
I remember thinking his cape looked silly because it's all digital and it looks terrible.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So Spawn's not a character that I'm particularly interested in. I know it's sort of based on the sort of Faustian legend of, man sells soul to devil, etc.
But Jamie Foxx can be very good in things.
He can be. He was in one of my least favourite films last year, Sleepless. Terrible. But he was also fantastic in Edgar Wright's Baby Driver. So under the right director. Sure.
Yeah, definitely.
But under the right director, I believe Todd McFarlane himself is directing the Spawn reboot.
Is he a director?
No, but he directed The Spirit. That was another one of his characters, and that was a shocking film.
Yeah.
So I don't hold out much hope for it.
And that's your news for the week, unless anything has broken in the last hour that we've completely missed.
And there's also been hundreds of other stories that Alan didn't deem newsworthy enough, so that's fine.
I mean, we're already at 1 hour 6 here.
Oh my god.
So just to wrap up, I've not watched anything else this week because I'm terrible at this. But Andrew has done more than enough for both of us.
Yeah, have I? Yeah.
Yeah, you've got a list of stuff that you watched.
Sure. So I watched a couple. I'll just kind of very quickly go through a few of the things I watched. A couple of new things. Edie, which is the one we talked about last week, about the older lady that walks up the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
It was not great. It had a little bit of a River City soap opera vibe to it.
Was it 2 stars you gave it?
Yeah, 2 out of 5 for me. And then I saw a French film called Jeune Femme, which again we spoke about a couple of weeks ago. It was a solid little movie, really good lead performance. Camera very rarely left her lead actress. She's fairly young, and carried the whole movie herself. I say fairly young, about ages with ourselves, really. That's young enough. We're still young, right?
Yeah, you're a couple years older than me.
Yep, okay. So it was solid. It had a kind of strange, fragmented editing style that is becoming quite popular with, I think quite a lot of contemporary French films seem to be cut this way, that I've seen recently. It kind of threw me out of the movie a little bit, but it was still solid, and particularly the lead performance was really good. So that's a couple of new movies that are probably both still out right now. Old stuff, I've seen a few movies, but my standout really was Woody Allen's Husbands and Wives, which I watched a few days ago.
Is that an older one?
That's an older one, yeah. 1992. So it's not right in his old period, but, early 90s one. So it's a sort of a remake of Ingmar Bergman's, the title now escapes me, but Ingmar Bergman did like a 3-hour Swedish television sort of drama about marriage and divorce and all that kind of stuff.
Your wife's daughter, that kind of stuff.
You know, I know Woody Allen's a kind of hot, or not such a hot topic now. He's a sort of, but interestingly enough, it does star Mia Farrow. It's when he and Mia Farrow were starring as a husband and wife, and it is a really solid movie. It's right up there with some of his earlier stuff like Manhattan, Annie Hall, and it's on Mubi right now, and it is just a really good sort of balance of that really fun humor. Definitely some sort of heavier drama elements in there as well, but also lots of that fun existentialist stuff that you would expect from a Woody Allen film. Definitely one of his stronger efforts.
Do you have any misgivings about watching his stuff or watching Roman Polanski stuff or anything like that?
No.
That's not really a topic we should get into with 2 minutes left of the
How
show,
much
is it?
longer do we want to go for?
No.
I mean, misgivings about watching it, I don't know.
Okay, let's not talk about it right now.
It's a tricky one.
Yes.
I don't think he's a particular example to people, but I still don't think you can get away from the fact that he made some really good movies and he continues to make some good art. About what he's done or not done as a person, there's problems there because there's conflicting stories, and there's also a fairly staunch defense that he's put up himself. So I don't know. It's a tricky one. I think we could devote an entire podcast to debating that, but I don't know that we'd have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, probably not.
But yeah, husbands and wives, check it out or don't.
That should be the catchphrase for the show.
Yeah. So, but you didn't watch anything this week
No.
for our film podcast.
I watched the same film twice.
Solo, A Star Wars Story. That's true. Well done, Alan. I watched 8 other films.
Yes, Stand By Me. Watched that. It's a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
So good.
Yep. And Waiting for Guffman.
Yeah, I saw you tweeting about that very enthusiastically.
Brilliant. Yeah. Mark Kermode was showing it with Sam Mendes, actually. Sam Mendes had recommended it at a recent live event that he does at the BFI South Bank as a sort of underseen gem, and it is phenomenal. A really good mockumentary about a small town putting on a sort of stage play about their town's history. Very, very funny.
Cool. Check that out if you have access to them. Next week in the cinemas, you can watch, if you are so inclined, Book Club, which looks bad.
Yeah, it got okay reviews to begin with, and they've just been steadily going down.
It's a big group of older women who start a book club after having read 50 Shades of Grey.
They already have a book club from what I
right,
take
yeah.
from it, but they decide rather than reading some proper literature, they're going to read 50 Shades of Grey to give themselves a little bit of spice.
They didn't come up with their own take on a raunchy romantic novel. They just used 50 Shades of Grey.
Why not?
It's very cheap.
It was showing at Cineworld in the Unlimited screenings a few weeks ago, but I didn't go. So,
A film called Double Lover, or L'Amant Double.
very nice. You've been practicing.
Let's see. Chloe, a fragile young woman, falls in love with her psychoanalyst, Paul. A few months later, she moves in with him, but soon discovers that her lover is concealing a part of his identity. Isn't that always the way it goes?
Ha! Yeah. Also in cinemas on Friday, there's another French movie, Ishmael's Ghosts, which tells the tale of a widowed film director in the middle of making a film about an atypical diplomat inspired by his brother. While he has started a new life with Sylvia, he still mourns the death of a former lover, Carlotta, who passed away 20 years earlier. But then Carlotta returns from the dead, causing Sylvia to run away.
Does she literally return from the dead?
I do not know, but I'm going to see it on Friday night, so I'll report back next week.
Oh. Let us know if she's a ghost, a zombie, or other.
Or other.
You know, being someone who faked her death. The least interesting of the options. Jurassic World is out. Fallen Kingdom. A volcanic eruption threatens the remaining dinosaurs on the island of Isla Nubla, where the creatures have freely roamed for several years after the demise of an animal theme park known as Jurassic World. Claire Deering, the former park manager, has now founded the Dinosaur Protection Group, an organisation dedicated to protecting... Oh, I've got to scroll down the page. It's taking ages. Protecting dinosaurs to help with her cause. Claire has recruited Owen Grady, a former dinosaur trainer. All that should not be news to you.
That is basically, yeah, it's like those two characters that you remember from that last movie, they get back together again. Yeah.
I just don't know.
Yeah. Well, we'll be covering that one next week.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be the topic next week. I don't know if we'll talk as long about that as we did for Solo.
Yep. We've also got My Friend Dahmer, which is a sort of story about the young Jeffrey Dahmer. I saw it a few months ago at the Glasgow Film Festival. It was showing, so could talk about that next week.
Yeah, I kind of wish it was shown more widely because I would like to see it.
It's only on, I think, at our little GFT again this week, isn't it?
And ending on a bit of a low note, a film called The Rape of Reese Taylor.
Yeah, so this is about...
I think I feel like I'm familiar with the story of this woman.
Yeah, it's a documentary about a black mother who was gang raped in 1944 in Alabama. It's going to shed some light on just the horrible abuse that black women received back in that day. So yeah, it's meant to be a very powerful.
Yeah, if you heard of Rosa Parks, she was involved in this case and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
it's an important story to tell. Not all films, unfortunately, can be happy and stuff.
But we are deeming Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom more important.
We're deeming Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom won't leave us in a state of utter misery by the end of it, but by God, it might.
Yeah, who knows? On Netflix, we have November 30th. Oh my God.
Yeah, November 13th, Attack on Paris, which is a documentary about the terror attacks a couple of years ago. Seems a little soon for a documentary about that for some reason,
yeah.
but that'll be out on
what's his
Friday on
name
Netflix.
From the Eagles of Death Metal going to be involved?
I really hope not.
He's kind of a dick.
No kind of about it.
Yeah.
It's a subject I think is a little too raw still, but
Yeah.
it's a new Netflix original documentary. It'll probably be a decent production, but that's the only film release on Netflix on Friday.
So that's it. Sorry we ran a little long today, but hopefully it was all enjoyable. You can find us at CinematicPod on Twitter or email us at cftppod@gmail.com. That was cftppod@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter at SuperDiscoBacon and on letterbox.com at that same address.
And I'm on Twitter at the Technogoat, all one word, and on Letterboxd at just Technogoat.
One of these days someone's going to ask us to explain those names.
Yeah.
But not today.
Not today.
So join in next week for Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. I don't know. I don't have high hopes for it. I like the last one, all right, but
I think I liked the last one a lot more than you did, but I still don't think this one looks great. I really like the director though, so high hopes.
high hopes. Thanks for joining in.